Welcome to Fort Worth Innovates, a show about innovation, research, entrepreneurship, and startups in Panther City. My name is Cameron Cushman, and I'm the host of this podcast that brings you the stories of the innovators, entrepreneurs, and visionaries that are putting our city on the map as a leader in innovation. With the help of the Fort Worth Tarrant County Innovation Partnership, we are bringing you stories of innovation in our hometown. My guest today is Jay Brooks, a native of Fort Worth and founder of GlassView, a technology that is transforming the way that advertisers think about how we view the ads that they serve up to us. Using wearable technology based on medical research, they are building the first emotion-powered media platform. GlassView is working to translate subconscious reactions into smarter creative and media decisions, turning advertising into an experience that moves people and drives measurable growth. GlassView has worked with big brands like Apple and Salesforce, just to name a few. At GlassView, they turn emotion into currency that advertisers can use to determine if the messages that resonate the most with their audiences. Jay, welcome to the Fort Worth Innovates podcast.
Thanks so much, Cameron. It's great to be here.
Okay, so tell me about the genesis of this idea. How did GlassView start?
Sure. We've been around for the past 11 years, and we got our start really just in the video distribution space. So working with big brands to deliver their video views online, on mobile, on CTV, and optimize towards performance, be it that clicks, conversions, increases in customer lifetime value, and the like. And in that time, we've had some pretty big success. We were listed as one of Deloitte's fastest growing companies in North America. And we signed on big clients, ranging from some of the biggest banks in the world to some of the biggest technology firms and advertising companies. And really, it's been a ride for the past 11 years. More recently, in the past couple of years, we identified that we were starting to sort of plateau in the marketplace. And we took this sort of soul-searching look at ourselves as a company and what we were trying to achieve. It really came down to, we as an industry have gotten incredibly good at optimizing towards clicks, towards completions, towards, identifying the right cookies that make a campaign work, that we've lost sight of what advertising is meant to do, which is to increase connection between brand and consumer. And so we knew we had a new goal of understanding that emotional tie between brand and consumer. We had to figure out a way to measure it and to be able to optimize accordingly to drive more salient long-term performance for our clients. And so that sort of set us down a new path.
Fantastic. And I think you're kind of hinting at a big problem that advertisers have is how do they know that the marketing that they're doing is working? So can you kind of tell us a little bit about your solution and how that has an impact on solving that problem for marketers, advertisers, and the companies that buy that advertising?
Sure. I think we as an industry got a little bit myopic on what performance meant. And so, with the advent of online in the past 20 years, everyone got hyper-focused on clicks. And then maybe more recently with retargeting, everyone got sort of focused on conversions, converting customers, but at what cost? I think folks have really lost sight of that connection between brand and consumer and ultimately increasing that customer lifetime value. If you look at companies on the S&P 500, 60, 70 years ago, the average tenure of a company on the S&P 500 was 40, 50 years. Now today it's, under 16 years and it's plummeting. But part of it is that companies have lost sight of what it means to develop that emotional connection with their customer and look to maintain and grow that relationship. For better or for worse, at the same time that companies are decreasing in terms of customer lifetime value, they're also going up in terms of of importance.
Jay, that's fascinating. But wasn't your company based on technology that came out of a university? And can you tell us a little bit about how that process worked?
Yeah, so a few years ago, when we realized that we were sort of plateauing as a company, and really, frankly, the barriers to entry into our business became pretty non-existent. If you had a laptop, you could start an ad agency. We knew that we had to go deeper, and so if you sort of think of marketing throughout the decades and the centuries as living on a sort of science funnel, marketing has been relegated to the sort of softer sciences throughout history. Sociology, who's my target audience, where do they live, and who am I identifying demographically that would be a good target customer for what I'm selling. Maybe more recently, we've started to get into psychology, what subconscious drivers might motivate folks, what's the psychographic profile of a good target audience. But then with online, we've really been able to dive deeper into the harder sciences, optimizing based on geography, optimizing based on frequency. And now with the advent of wearables, where you can get real-time biometric information and now neurometric information as well, we can start to dive into biology and neuroscience to understand customer motivation and drive real performance. So we knew we needed to do better, dive from the softer sciences into the harder sciences as a sort of guidepost. And so I started having conversations with folks doing just that at Harvard, at MIT Media Labs, at University of Michigan. There's a consumer psychology department with 80 MRI machines set up to do brain scans, understand consumer sentiment when they're being, people are being fed Coke or Pepsi, and how does the brain respond neurologically to different stimuli and different brands. One name in particular kept coming up during those conversations. That was Dr. Michael Platt, who is a chair in the University of Pennsylvania School of Medicine and also the head of the Wharton Neuroscience Department. So he sits at this very interesting intersection between consumer psychology, medicine, and business, and he's also the founder of this company called Cogwear, which is the world's first clinical grade EEG device that's wearable. So it's technologically sophisticated enough to detect early onset Alzheimer's and is FDA pending approval for that very use case. So very noble and grand ambition there. It can also tell in real time how people are feeling. Are they happy? Are they sad? Is there something as nuanced as nostalgic or empathetic? And by using that information, we can serve advertising to folks in a panel, folks who are organically part of the Cogwear audience, understand those real subconscious consumer sentiments, and use that to optimize media delivery and the creative itself. So I heard his name by several in several of the conversations I was having. I ended up taking a course that he was teaching at Wharton as part of the Executive Education Center there on neuroscience in business. And so from a foundational level, studying the neuron and axes and dendrites all the way to the electrical signals that the brain emits when it is stimulated, and how you can infer from those electrical signals the emotions and brain health that I mentioned before. I started to understand the real world use case for commerce, for business. And so after taking his class, and I think I got a B in it, I was very happy about it. I reached out to him and I said, Dr. Platt, you're sitting on a gold mine here. I don't have to tell you that. How can we work together? I've got this, rapidly growing media company, and we need something like this to make better media decisions and better creative decisions. So we got to talking. We came to terms on a business plan, on something economically viable for both groups. GlassView invested in his company Cogwear, and we were able to secure the commercial rights to use the device in marketing and media. So it was a really big boon to GlassView. And the wonderful thing about this is that, in our industry, we have this saying that don't worry, this may be important, but we're not saving lives here in our world. Well, now that the economic viability of my company and the licensing agreement that fuels Cogwear um, uh, goes into brain health and brain science, we are embarking down a road where we will be saving lives and we will be helping folks with brain health. And so that to me, it just gives me a whole new lease on my existence, on my company's existence, and I couldn't be more proud to be aligned with Dr. Platt and his mission of increasing brain health and leveraging commerce to do that.
Very cool. Love that story. And my goodness, that's a lot of MRIs, and that's a lot of work that you did to get to that point. So I'm looking at your website and doing some research for this episode. I see people wearing something on their heads, and you said that this is a wearable technology, obviously, and they're also wearing something and then looking at a screen. Can you kind of tell us what that looks like? Can you describe that in words, what it looks like, and then obviously how that technology works from what the user is wearing?
Yeah, sure. So Cogwear itself is powered by EEG, which is electroencephalogram, and it basically measures the electrical signals, the brain waves that your brain emits when it is stimulated. And so all of us have, alpha waves, beta waves, gamma waves, delta, theta, mu, and those waves mean something when it comes to your emotion, when it comes to your brain health. If you're seeing an increase in beta waves, you might be increasingly agitated. If you're seeing an increase in alpha asymmetry, it may show that you are in the same wavelength as someone who you are in the same room with, or you are on the same wavelength of a piece of media that you're witnessing. And from that information, we can assess by timestamping videos that we serve online, and then assessing neurological responses to those videos. Everyone who's wearing the band has a piece of software on their phone and laptop that allows us to timestamp what's being served, what they're watching, and so we can really on a second by second basis understand the neurological responses to media that we're delivering. And using that information, we can optimize: is the time of day right to get the optimal emotional response? Is the context the right context to get the optimal emotional response? Is this demographic responding emotionally how we would like to see? All the way to frequency. Have we served the ad too many times in the past week? And or are we experiencing fatigue? So all of these levers that we can pull in media to guarantee campaign success, we can now do it with a layered on unique differentiator, which is neurometric information. How that's done, Cogwear has its own organic audience. Cogwear is working with healthcare groups, with doctors, with sports teams like the Cleveland Guardians and several others. They're working with high-profile sports players themselves. They're wearing the band. What they get from it is a better understanding of their brain health, of their player performance. With one of our top athletes, he's a pitcher. I can't say his name just yet, but we have now seen with 95% confidence the neurometrics that we get in the morning from this pitcher, this all-star pitcher, predicts his ERA for the game. So it is a very powerful and potent tool across myriad of use cases in life, and not least of which is, are you connecting with your customer as a brand? So it's a powerful driver into the subconscious, and it's something that I spoke to before, which is first as a brand you have to make someone feel something before they are tied to you, and we can measure that now.
Fascinating. That's so cool. So this goes way beyond just how did I feel about a TikTok video I just watched or an ad on YouTube. This is a much bigger deal. So who is your target market, and what do you hope to provide to them? Tell us kind of how this works in a commercial sense.
Sure. So I'll delineate sort of GlassView's target market and then Cogwear's target market. So Cogwear, we are in the process of being able to identify Alzheimer's much earlier than previously done. And so for the sake of brain health, their target market would be doctors, hospitals, anyone who's concerned about brain health, anyone who's optimizing for longevity, the list goes on. And in that market, if you think about the lost production level with folks who get early onset Alzheimer's, to the folks who have to leave the workforce to take care of loved ones at home, that's a $2 to $5 trillion market right there that Cogwear could be addressing just by being able to identify it earlier, intervene earlier with lifestyle changes, with some medication. There's a Lacombe pill out there that has shown real promise in sort of arresting Alzheimer's. There's a Dr. Reze out of Boston who has an incredible new technique where they're able to inject the brain with a plasma and through ultrasonic waves able to destroy plaque in the brain. So all of this is the earlier you can catch these kind of debilitating diseases, the better your chances are. And now that we have the technology, which is new, this sort of portable electroencephalogram, portable EEG that can capture your brain waves outside of the lab and get, to understand a real baseline for where you are as an individual patient and where do we, what do we see, what changes do we see in the brain from that baseline. That gives us so much more opportunity to understand brain health and how we can ameliorate some of those diseases. So that's on the brain health side. If you think about, players at the highest level who are looking to optimize their game, their player focus, their camaraderie with their teammates, that's another $1 trillion market. Understanding, the level of focus. There was a very famous story with Fitbit, where the founder of Fitbit identified that it was really heart rate variability, stress, and strain that were the three driving mechanisms to increase performance as an athlete. And while everyone else was out there focusing on throwing the ball farther, lifting, heavier weights, pitching a no error game, he correctly, I think, identified that it was these byproducts that the biometric device of Fitbit or Whoop, it was one of the founders who was very famous about this story, said, identified these three main drivers. I believe it was Whoop now, sorry. And it transformed how players thought about their own performance. We are in the process of identifying those for the brain, which is really the source of all biometrics. Your biometrics come from the neurometrics. And if we can understand that neuroplasticity, focus, and decreased agility, I'm just throwing those out there, are really the things that you should optimize for as a player, and that's going to increase your game by another 10 or 15%. Man, the effects of this are going to be just astronomical. Then we look at leadership. We look at building high caliber teams. And one of the most critical things for teams is to build trust. It is the most critical thing in any sort of organization. Is you need a high trust team, no matter what comes your way, that you can count on your colleagues. And there are ways to measure that neurologically speaking. You can tell when someone enters a group neurologically if that person is going to be received. Are they on the same brain wavelength, or are they going to be repelled by the group? So that's a really important thing to optimize for high caliber teams. Students, there's a Nobel Prize winner who has the theory, I don't know if I can say his name. He has a theory that students, the most important thing for them to be able to take in academic information and progress educationally is their attachment to the teacher, to their main teacher. And so you can measure attachment styles neurologically speaking. So if we put these in the classroom and measure, most of the children here have a great secure attachment to their teacher. They're going to succeed in this classroom. But there's a cohort over here that is not attaching, can we find an instructor where they would have more of a secure attachment and get the education across? The use cases are myriad. I would say, conservatively speaking, it's a $5 to $10 trillion market that we're looking at on the Cogwear side by itself. In advertising, which is the field that GlassView plays in, we're working with these Fortune 500 brands to increase customer lifetime value, increase connection between brand and consumer, decrease the cost per new clients, increase the retention value. And over time, we're starting to see patterns that have emerged on brands, where they are in the life cycle and how they should get customers on board. And why I believe this is so noble is because all of this commercial success is feeding into the healthcare, is feeding into athletics. And so we're making Cogwear a better company, which is going to have, great ramifications across all sectors in our world.
Very cool. Yeah. And it seems like you've really been able to find some cross-cutting use cases, which I absolutely love. That's really, really cool. But let's go back to advertising for a second. What do you see? I'm interested in like advertising fatigue. What do you see when someone puts on your device and they get tired of seeing the same messages over and over again? And what do you think that tells us in a philosophical sense about our current society?
Yeah, I mean, fatigue has always been a really important lever to pull in advertising. There's an optimal frequency that's, I think, different across campaigns, across advertisers, across cohorts. There was an old saying that a commercial doesn't register with someone until they see it 6 times. I don't know if that's true, and I don't know what the time frame needs to be, but I do know that fatigue is real and it sets in. And so if you get diminishing returns, if 6 is the optimal over a week, you start to get diminishing returns on the 7th and 8th ad, and then it turns into negative returns. If you are on some of those streaming services and you see the same ad over and over again throughout an episode you're trying to watch, there's a point in which you swear you will never buy that product again. And so it's important to find the optimal frequency, which is now more measurable. What do we see in the brain? Increases in beta waves, increase in fatigue, increase in frustration, decreases in joy, increases in confusion. And so it becomes very apparent when you are overexposing someone to a stimuli what needs to be done. And so what does it say about our society? I think we're not robots. People are people, and it's the same thing. If you have an annoying friend who tells you the same story over and over, you're going to be annoyed, and so you have to watch out for that.
That's me. I'm that annoying friend. Hey, do you want to hear about this cool innovator that I talked to? Hey, do you know about this company? So I hear you loud and clear on that. Jay, I'm curious to know about your background before you started GlassView. Can you kind of give us a little bit of a bio before you got into this work?
Sure. I was very lucky. I sort of stumbled into online advertising back in 2004. Born and raised in Fort Worth, did my undergrad in Dallas, and then came to New York, and just sort of kind of fell into the online ad world, where I worked for a small agency from 04 to 06, and we were a really annoying agency that served pop-up advertising. Do you remember when that was prevalent?
Unfortunately, I do remember those days, yes.
Yeah. So I know about fatigue and I know about frustrating your customer. And let's just say that's not the right way to do it. I was very lucky there because my boss at this agency got a big break, and he was hired to run all the operations for Condé Nast, the publisher of Vogue magazine, The New Yorker, Vanity Fair, Wired magazine, and then they bought Reddit while I was there. And so he hired me after he got his job, and I started working at Condé Nast Online, which we called Condé Net at the time. And I guess I did a good enough job there, serving, building and serving the majority of online ad campaigns for Vogue.com and Wired.com, that I caught the attention of the senior level leadership at Condé Nast, and even the Newhouse family, who own Condé Nast and have big stakes in Discovery channels and advanced publications, owning a large swath of newspapers nationwide, that, we stayed in touch. And when I launched GlassView, Stephanie Newhouse from the Newhouse family invested in our company and joined our board here at GlassView. And so we were able to hit the ground, running in terms of credibility. We got, Fortune 50 clients right off the bat, and we're plugged in with some of the most prominent, prestigious publishers worldwide. And so it was a roller coaster ride in those early days. I was looking back at my calendar. I was on a plane or traveling something like 240 days for several years in a row, launching our offices in Tokyo and London. And it was a wild ride, but luckily I was kind of at the right place at the right time. I had incredible people from the start who believed in me and our team that we were building. And it's very cool. The boss who had hired me at Condé Nast, I was able to attract him over to GlassView, and he came and worked with us for a number of years. He's since retired. He's living a life of a gentleman now, going to Barry's boot camp every day. But the most important thing, I think, is having strong teammates, high trust, knowing that this market, even though it is global, is very small. And so you have to make sure that you do a good job and work with folks who you admire and trust. And I've been very, very fortunate throughout my years.
Very cool. So, Jay, on this show, we love to try to take a peek into the future. What do you see as the future of advertising, messaging, and how will your vision interact with the future of social media, maybe streaming services, television? You mentioned sports. What do you see as GlassView's path for the future, and what are the future that you're trying to create?
Great question. I think the future, as it pertains to media, is twofold. I think with the advent of AI and Gen AI, the value of media is going to continue to go down precipitously. And I think the increase in value of real life, in-person experience is going to go up from here. And so that's a great thing. I think, we as a society have never been more isolated, alone, drug addicted, suicidal. And that's also part of our mission at GlassView and Cogwear, is the first step in changing something is to measure it. And so now, for the first time, we have this opportunity to measure brain health at large, understand that a healthy customer, a healthy user base is what we all want. If you're a cynic and you only believe in what's good for the bottom line, well, you want a healthy customer base at the very least. If you're more idealistic and you believe in humanity like I do, I think we have a real opportunity to create better environments for our young people that get them out in the real world, interacting with each other, understanding the importance of social connections. And so I think in real life is the name of the game. Now, on the flip side, I do believe that, with the metaverse and with augmented reality, being able to, put on meta glasses and walk down the street and say, oh, it's Cameron Cushman, his birthday's coming up. Last time you saw him was for dinner, at Joe T. Garcia's back in May of 24. Here's what you all talked about. I do believe that the integration between online and offline will become more pervasive. And so that's going to create a lot more advertising opportunities for big brands. So I think those brands that focus on increasing connection between their customers and themselves, and increasing the connection between people in general, and then also those brands that more effortlessly integrate into an augmented reality existence are the ones that are going to win in the future.
Very cool. Yeah, I love that. And there's so many different possibilities of the way all that's going to go. And it'll be really interesting to see where we are in 5, 10, 15 years with all of the different technologies that are out there. So Jay, you are from Fort Worth, as you mentioned, but I know you operate in cities from New York to Tokyo and across the globe. But what is your favorite innovation that you're seeing in Fort Worth?
A great question. I I think it goes down back to our pioneering roots in Fort Worth, that we've always had that innovative spirit. Weren't we the first city to have an indoor rodeo? And
That's right. That's
don't we
right.
see the legacy that continues to exist from that? Everything from 100 years ago having the first indoor rodeo to today, I think with a recent announcement, we now have more than 1 million square feet in warehouse AI factory space that is going up in Fort Worth. And so if the past 10 years has been all about cloud compute, it didn't matter where your data centers were, whether it was in Arizona or the Middle East. I think we are now going to have a renewed focus on where is my data, and private compute, I think, will be a big trend in the next 5, 10, 20 years. And so for Fort Worth to take the leadership role on that kind of compute power being in our city, and the types of industry that's going to attract, and having access, both technical access and logistical access to private compute is only going to grow. And I love to see that Fort Worth is on the cutting edge there.
That's awesome. Yeah, it's so funny. I grew up in Fort Worth as well, and I'd never been to an outdoor rodeo until just a few years ago. The only rodeos I'd ever been to were indoor, which was just kind of like funny because every rodeo's outdoor except for in Fort Worth. Yeah, and this city really is ramping up from a data collection perspective, data centers. It's going to be really interesting to see where Fort Worth kind of ends up in the future on that and many more topics. Well, Jay, thank you so much for joining me today on Fort Worth Innovates. If you like hearing stories like this one about innovation, research, entrepreneurship, founders, as is the case today, and startups in our city, please subscribe, share, and be sure to tell a friend. The more you engage, the more episodes we can bring you. Fort Worth Innovates is produced by Kendall Rogers. We'd also like to thank our sponsor for this podcast, the Fort Worth Tarrant County Innovation Partnership, who are building an innovation district where technology and research combine to build the future, right here, right now.